It's opening night. There's a feeling of tension and excitement in the air. The technical crew is checking the lighting, the rigging, and the sound systems to make sure everything is functioning properly. The set designer is working with the stagehands to put the finishing touches on the scenic backdrops. The makeup and costume crew are chasing after the actors who are nervously practicing their lines for the last time. They are counting down the minutes until the curtain opens and they step into the spotlight to play their part in this epic drama. So much is riding on this moment. Throughout the winter, the actors have been meeting to rehearse their lines and refine their performances. They've braved the cold, the snow, and the general weariness that comes with the winter season and the constant rehearsals. What's kept them going all these months is the circled opening night date on the calendar. That day has finally arrived. Winter has passed, springtime is here, and the time has come for them to step onto the stage and prove that all their hard work was truly worth the effort. Like these actors, God has given us a role to play in the grand drama that we call life. And there will be times when He will call us to step onto the stage to perform the part that He has designed for us. These are exciting moments. The opening day in springtime when all seems possible. But the reality is that most of our moments will feel more like those cold rehearsal times in winter, seasons when it feels like we are outnumbered by foes and outmaneuvered by fate and outdone by fear. We wonder if the part that we have to play will make any difference at all. If there is anyone who could relate to such sentiments, it was a young woman in the Bible named Esther. Her story is one that rivals the great dramas of Hollywood, filled with intrigue, plot twists, noble heroes, and a devious villain. But unlike our modern blockbuster movies, the events related in the book that bears her name are true. And as the curtain rises on this actor, we find that the stakes couldn't be higher for the role that God was calling her to play. The audience members are now in their seats. The director gives a quick nod to the symphony conductor. The baton is lifted and the music begins. A quick read of the pamphlet provided by a helpful usher reveals that the setting for our tale is the city of Susa in the 5th century BC. Susa was the winter palace for the kings of the mighty Persian Empire. The empire was immense, controlling more than 2.9 million square miles at the time and comprising roughly 44% of the world's population. It stretched from India to North Africa. As the lights come up, we see the first character in this divine play, a solitary figure on the stage. His name is Xerxes, and he is the king of the Persian Empire. History tells us about his exploits. He had recently suppressed a revolt among his subjects in Egypt and was now planning a campaign against Greece. The Bible tells us about his character. As we read, in the 3rd year of his reign, Xerxes gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials. The military leaders of Persia and Media, the princes, and the nobles of the provinces were present. Xerxes promised wealth and rewards to all warriors willing to join the campaign. And to prove that he could make good on his promise, he staged a 6-month extravaganza. For a full 180 days, he displayed the vast wealth of his kingdom and the splendor and glory of his majesty. It was a Mardi Gras of drinking and dining. Guests from 100 posts and ports, officials, power brokers, and wannabes mingled, schmoozed, and indulged, feasts on a dozen tables. But toward the end of the carnival, the king's true colors began to appear. On the seventh day, when King Xerxes was in high spirits from the wine, he commanded the 7 eunuchs who served him to bring before him Queen Vashti, wearing her royal crown, in order to display her beauty to the people and nobles, for she was lovely to look at. Apparently, the king expected his queen to dance in front of his friends and leave them entranced in a cloud of perfume. He was in for a surprise, for Vashti refused to comply. Furious, the king consulted his cabinet members, who were seemingly as dense and drunk as he was. They huddled and strategized and told the king to make an example of Vashti by banishing her. Then the advisors told Xerxes to hold a royal beauty pageant to choose her replacement. This, of course, pleased the king. With these events in motion, the lights now move across the stage to land on the next 2 main characters in our drama, an older man and a younger woman. The woman is Esther. The man is Mordecai, her cousin, who has raised her since birth. Here is how their story opens. Now there was in the citadel of Susa a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin named Mordecai, son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, who had been carried into exile from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, among those taken captive with Jehoiakim, king of Judah. Well, right away we learned that Mordecai and Esther were members of the Jewish race. They were the exiled descendants of the people of Israel. Now, if you had to pick a word to describe the Israelites of the Old Testament, you'd have many options. Stubborn comes to mind. God said they were stiff-necked. But they were also called to be spiritual, serious, strong. They were supposed to be holy. Biblically, this meant they were to be set apart. They were to live by God's standard rather than the standard of the world. It was a call to both display and demonstrate God's righteousness. When God first called Abraham out of the land of Ur, he ordained him to be the father of a holy nation. He promised Abraham, "I will bless those who bless you, and I will place a curse on those who harm you, and all the people of the earth will be blessed through you." That global blessing would come in the birth of Jesus Christ, a descendant of Abraham. The children of the patriarch were to be curators and caretakers of the promised seed of heaven. The Jews were the family tree that would bear the greatest fruit, the Redeemer of the world. For this reason, they were to remain distinct. They were not to marry non-Jews, worship pagan deities, or embrace the pagan culture. God summarized this high standard when he proclaimed, "You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." Sometimes the Israelites succeeded in meeting this standard, but more often than not, they failed. Eventually, God determined to get their attention and return their hearts back to him through exile. In 586 BC, he allowed the Babylonians to sack Jerusalem and begin the forced deportation of its citizens. In 539 BC, the Persians sacked the Babylonians. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, Mordecai and Esther are the main characters in our drama, but in Act 1, they are nowhere close to resembling the heroes of our tale. Just look again at the text. Now, there was in the citadel of Susa a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin named Mordecai, son of Jair. Mordecai was living in the citadel of Susa, which was the political thicket of the Persian Empire. Even worse, we read later that he was on duty at the palace. He didn't just live at the citadel, he worked there. Moreover, Mordecai had adopted a pagan name. The name Mordecai was an adaptation of Marduk, which was a Persian male deity. It's hard to believe that a modern-day Jew would name his son Mohammed, or that a God-fearing citizen of Israel would work for the Iranian military. So how do we explain a Jewish man named after a pagan deity who is living on a Persian payroll? Well, the answer is obvious when we look again at the account. Mordecai was the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, who had been carried into exile from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. In other words, Mordecai was 3 generations removed from the first Jerusalem exiles. And somewhere along the line, he had begun to assimilate into the Persian culture and blend in rather than stand out. He had gone clandestine with his convictions and deferred his theology to bureaucracy. He had swapped his cultural identity for personal security. Even worse, he had encouraged his family to do the same. As the story states, Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, whom he had brought up because she had neither father nor mother. This girl, who was also known as Esther, was lovely in form and features, and Mordecai had taken her as his own daughter when her mother and father died. The name Hadassah comes from the Hebrew word for myrtle, which implies righteous, and this name fits because, as we'll soon see, Hadassah was made of the right stuff to take the righteous stand. But here, at the beginning of the story, she was called Esther, in deference to the Persian goddess Ishtar. History reveals that the polytheistic Persians, like the Babylonians before them, did not require their conquered peoples to give up their gods. Go ahead, they said. Sacrifice to your cow, pray to your moon, bow before your goddess. But just worship the gods of Persia as well. Now, this was a problem for the Jews. They were to worship only God and have no other gods before him. The initial response of Mordecai and Esther to this dilemma was disguise and compromise. As we read, when the king's order and edict had been proclaimed, many young women were brought to the citadel of Susa. Esther was also taken to the king's palace. She had not revealed her nationality and family background because Mordecai had forbidden her to do so. Esther and Mordecai had chosen to create a world of hidden identity. I envision Mordecai and Esther seated around a table to discuss the strategy. Esther, Mordecai says, this is the best plan. She shakes her head slowly. But they will know, she replies. They will find out. Mordecai is adamant. Not if you're careful. Say little, offer nothing, go unnoticed. Listen, Esther, our people are adrift here in Susa. No one remembers Jerusalem. No one remembers the temple. Your parents, may their memory be blessed, lived and died in Persia. We will do the same. It's best just to make the best of it. So it was that Mordecai entered Esther into a bachelorette contest, knowing the competition included a night in the bed of a Gentile king. He told her to show him a good time and keep her nationality a secret, and she complied. The soft butter of their convictions melted against the warm knife of pragmatism. They buried their Jewish identity beneath layers of compromise. Of course, we face the same temptation today. The compulsion to compromise affects us all, not in Persia, but at work, at school, on the bowling league, in the pony league. Everything around us says, conform, be a part of the gang, forget your uniqueness, blend in, fit in. Our society permits all beliefs except an exclusive belief. It says it's okay to do whatever you want as long as you accept what everyone else does. The incontestable value of our culture today is tolerance. Ironically, the champions of tolerance are intolerant of a religion like Christianity that adheres to one Savior and one solution to the human problem. To believe in Jesus as the only Redeemer is to incur the disdain of Persia. This is why we must remember our true identity. As Peter writes, we are temporary residents and foreigners of this world. Our eternal citizenship is not the one printed on our passports. We are subjects of a different king. We heed a higher law. We follow a greater good. We have the same mandate as the Israelites of the Old Testament, to be caretakers of God's promise. The message of Jesus has been entrusted to us. And we have the hope the world needs, especially a world that is wrapped in winter. This is not the time for us to blend in and assimilate, but to heed God's call and follow His standard. And make no mistake, our standard is still holiness. The same Creator who told the Israelites, "You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy," also told the church, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will." Sadly, as the curtain closes on Act 1 of the story of Mordecai and Esther, they are not heeding this call. Fortunately, their part in the play doesn't end here. In the next act, our duo will recall their identity and accept God's invitation to partner with Him. And God, who is happy to give His children a second chance, will put them straight to work. He will show them, just as He will show us, that they have been made for a specific mission that He has in mind.